Hello, I'm a woman in my 20s, married for 3 years and living in Hawaii. I became emotionally numb from loving like crazy raising a child after getting married. Before, I used to get easily hurt by minor things and would often get offended. However, I'm now trying to balance childcare with housekeeping, so I honestly do not have time to pay attention to my own feelings. But a few days ago, I got hurt greatly from someone very close. That was from my own mother. The reason I'm sending in my story is because of that incident. People say that a child who grows up receiving love knows how to love. However, I really hate that saying. Truthfully, I grew up unloved, at least by my own mother. I have a sister who's 2 years older. Because she was the first child born into a childless family, she received full love and attention from everyone in the family. Even these days, the relatives whose visits are rare still remember my sister's name because she was so beloved. On the other hand, it was different for me. When I was born, my uncle's wife and my mom's sister both had babies 1 month ahead. So, I did not receive any attention. It was more because they were sons while I was a daughter. It would have been fine to end here. However, when my paternal grandma came to our house after hearing that I was born, she sobbed loudly because I was another girl and not a son. My father was the head of the family, and even though my mother had difficult labor, only because she had a daughter for the second time, my grandmother mistreated her. Of course, my paternal grandma would have no reason to look at me kindly either. While growing up, my mother treated me differently from my sister, who always received the better and prettier things. When we were going out, my mom dressed my sister like a princess, but she dressed me in a dark, ugly clothes and cut off my hair short for easy handling. Neighbors even suspected that I was a daughter born out of the marriage. However, when I was younger, I tried hard to get my mom's attention by behaving well. I would study hard and win awards in drawing or writing contests in school. I did all the cleaning and errands well, and I would smile, hiding my hurtful feelings in front of my mother. I tried my best, as any 10-year-old could do. I wanted to receive love and affection like other kids, who don't have to pay effort to get them. Then one day, I overheard my mom talking to her sister in a room with the door ajar. I was going to pass but stopped to listen when I heard my name. Nakyung is such a fox. Why is she doing that? She's trying to win over her sister and trying so hard to study, do writing, and even play the piano. What do you mean by to be proud of her? To me, don't you know how ridiculous she is? Even though I scold her, she smiles in front of me. It's so scary. She takes after my mother-in-law. Even though I had her, I really don't feel affection for her. I was appalled. I couldn't believe my own mother was thinking like that of me. I didn't know that, and here I was trying so hard to please her. I was too ashamed and pathetic that it drove me crazy to think about it. I hated my mom. I wanted to hurt her, just as she hurt me. If I die, will she be sorry? At young age, the best revenge I could think of was disappearing. So, I closed my eyes to jump into the street full of cars. Hey, Nagyong! My father's voice stopped me just as I tried to jump. When I turned around, I could see my dad returning from work. My dad looked shocked and stared at me. As soon as I saw my dad, hurtful feelings came up in lumps. I ran to my dad and cried for a long time in his arms. I was sobbing loudly. Then, I told the whole story of that day to my dad. That night, my dad and my mom had a big fight. My sister blamed me, and if our parents divorced, it would be my fault, and she would make me pay for it. I had to sleep in fear that my parents might get a divorce. Fortunately, they did not divorce, but remained cold toward each other for a while. My mother acted coldly toward me too. After that day, I decided one thing. It's a fact that mom only cares about my sister. I will not beg for her love. I no longer tried to please my mother to receive her love from then on. All I thought about was to grow up as soon as possible and meet someone who loved me and leave home. When my father passed away from illness when I was 17, I started to save money diligently by working. I ignored studying and only concentrated on making money. I did not have the necessary grades to go to college, and even if I passed the exam for college, I knew my mom wouldn't pay my tuition. I did everything, working at a fast food restaurant, an internet shopping mall as a fitting model, and delivering milk. When spring came, I turned 20 and left home. I didn't have enough money to live alone, so I decided to roommate with a girl I befriended at a restaurant where I worked. People say that it's hard when one is away from home, but I was the opposite. My roommate, who was older than me, treated me better than my own sister. My co-workers and my boss all treated me warmly. However, my happiness did not last. Due to the downturn in business, the head office decided to lay off people. As I was the youngest, I was the first to be fired since I had no family. My manager referred me to his acquaintance who had a women's clothing store in a wholesale market. When I went there, I found out that the store was actually owned by my ex-manager's older sister. I had mentioned that I did some fitting modeling for the internet shopping mall, and he remembered that and recommended me. The owner was very liberal. She was like an Amazon type of a warrior who cursed a lot and drank a lot. While working for a boss like that, my true nature that I did not know about emerged. At home, I always cringed and thought of myself as a big coward. But I wasn't. When rude customers made trouble, I used 4-letter words without hesitation and got into a fight, or negotiated adroitly with retail customers, and was able to befriend various people quickly who I did not know. I realized that personality could change depending on the surrounding situation. After working for about 6 months, my boss asked, "How is it going with Min?" "You mean my ex-manager? We're not that close to be well or not, but why?" She looked puzzled and asked me, "Aren't you dating together?" It was the first time that Min ever brought a girl to me. "A girl? I'm not a girl to my ex-manager, no way." I laughed so hard. It was ridiculous because he was almost 10 years older than me. He always treated me like a young child. Whenever I carried heavy things, he would be by my side nervously, or whenever we had a company dinner and other employees tried to give me drinks, he would prevent them by saying I was too young, and would hijack all my drinks. Therefore, for me to be considered a woman, it was just nonsense. Then, "You're a woman to me." My ex-manager came by the store a few days later and made such confession to me. I didn't know what to say. "Since when? When did you start looking at me as a woman?" My ex-manager seemed too shy to look at me directly and avoided my gaze when I asked him. "From the day of the interview." Oh my God, this man had a crush on me for over 2 years. "Let me ask you, don't you see me as a man?" I nodded. "Honestly, you're not my style, and you're 8 years older than me. Plus, you were my manager at work, so how could I even dare think of you as a man? Of course, you're a man who's sincere, hardworking, and take care of things well. However, those are not the conditions to become my boyfriend." He seemed to be quite shocked at my words. He left without saying anything. When I came home, I told the story to my roommate. Then, she said everyone knew at work except me that he liked me. She asked me if I really didn't know. "In fact, we all thought that you guys would become a couple because he was so dedicated to you. Wasn't he a great help of you? There would be no such knight in shining armor like him. However, the game is over since you don't see him as a man. When I listened to my roommate, I realized how he had been so supportive to me. Because he silently was by my side and took care of things behind me, I wasn't grateful. That night, I couldn't easily fall asleep. After that day, my ex-manager no longer came to the store. It bothered me since I couldn't see someone I used to see so often. However, I couldn't exactly show my feelings outwardly. After telling him that he was not a man to me, as it would be offensive to look for him now. After a month, my boss went abroad on vacation with her friends, so I had to manage the store all by myself. I had to reorganize all the inventory from the factory and display for both wholesale and retail, which was exhausting. I ended up sick with a high fever and terrible muscle pains, but still opened the store by myself. After finishing cleaning, I tried to sit on a chair, but I fell and fainted. In a dream, I heard someone calling my name, "Nagyong." I woke up at the sound. When I opened my eyes, I realized I was at a hospital. Someone was sleeping by my side. It was my ex-manager. I felt relieved to see him asleep, holding my hand tightly. I felt separated from the world, all alone, but I had someone by my side too. I didn't have to try to please him, but be myself. And when I thought I had someone who loves me, tears welled up. Then, I thought I shouldn't lose this person. So, I woke him up and asked him to be my boyfriend. He looked bewildered. Of course, we became a couple when he woke up. From that day, he and I became a couple. After dating for 2 years, we prepared to get married. My boss welcomed me wholeheartedly and gave us her blessings. My in-laws were open arms and welcomed me. The problem was my family. Since I left home at age 20, I never made a call, and now that I am getting married, it bothered me to make a call now. I was worried that they would treat my husband the way they had treated me. As expected, when we went home, my mother only served some tea when it was dinner time. My mother didn't look too happy and told us to let her know of the wedding date and told us to leave. I was so embarrassed to look at my husband and wished there was a hole to hide in. However, he only tried to console me instead. I'm lucky. I was so nervous that she would ask me to stay for dinner. That would have been a disaster for me. He would have felt hurt, but he acted as if nothing was a problem in consideration for me. I felt so grateful and sorry at the same time. After our announcement to both sides, we started preparing for the wedding. We decided not to follow the traditional exchanges of wedding gifts, and my husband was to get our newlywed housing, while I would buy basic household furniture and appliances with the money I had saved up. Without even a penny to help our wedding from my mother, I was able to prepare all of them. I got pregnant after a year of our wedding and had our firstborn baby daughter last year. To be honest, as I was in labor, I thought a lot about my mom. When I thought that she would have had pain like this to have me, I started to feel sorry that I hated her all this time. After having my baby, I called her. She said, "Now, do you realize what a hard time I had having you? You claimed that I hated you, but what mother in the world would hate her child without a reason? Raise your daughter that's a carbon copy of you. Then you would understand me. You didn't call me to ask for help with your postpartum care, did you? If so, don't even dream of it. It's too hard to do that, so go into a care center or hire a helper. Nowadays, mothers don't do that for their daughters anymore. Or else, ask your mother-in-law to help. You're her daughter-in-law who gave birth to her granddaughter, so she wouldn't refuse to help, right?" Actually, I had no intentions to even ask my mom for help. From the beginning, my mother-in-law had offered to help. My mom was saying it was difficult for her to help, and yet she's asking my mother-in-law to do it, which was so like her. I found out later that my husband knew I didn't get along with my mom, so he had already asked his mom to help me. I was so moved by his consideration that I came to tears. However, when my mother-in-law was preparing meals for me, I felt really uncomfortable putting her to work. At first, I got indigestion for a few days as I felt so guilty. However, what could I do as my body was not well? So, I forced myself to only think about getting well as soon as possible and repay for her help in double fold. When I decided that way, I was able to eat better without feeling guilty, and after 3 weeks, I was able to return to my normal activities. A human relationship is give and take that since I received a lot of love from my mother-in-law, I thought of caring for her a lot more. Whenever we went out, many people thought we were close because we are mother and daughter. In my heart, I do look to my mother-in-law as my own mother. When my daughter's first day came up, I was busy preparing for a party when I received a call from my mom. She demanded that I come home. I left my baby in my husband's care and went home alone. My sister happened to be there too. As soon as my mom saw me, "Since your sister will be married soon, I want you to move to this house that's too big for an old person like me to live here alone. It would be good for your child too." In truth, I was startled. Since when did she think of me so much and ask me to move in to live with her? What about my husband who would have to live with his mother-in-law? It was ridiculous. So I said, "Mom, what are you talking about? Do you want my husband to live with you, who's his mother-in-law? Don't you have any conscience? Did you do anything for him to make him care for you? And why do you decide that yourself? Don't you remember how you treated him when you got married? Did you prepare any meal for your son-in-law when he first came to meet you at the house? That's not all. I'm not a stranger but your daughter. Yet, you said you didn't want to meet my in-laws and refused to meet them before the wedding. Do you know how embarrassed I was in front of my in-laws? After your offensive acts against my husband and his family, how dare you ask him to come here to live with you? You're such a heartless person. How could you not visit the hospital even once when your own daughter had a baby? And you were too afraid I would ask you to help caring for me after the baby was born, that you turned it over to my mother-in-law. And yet, are you asking me to take care of you and live together? I will not. I will never do it. So wake up and don't even dream of it. If you want to live with your daughter, you should live with your beloved first daughter. You should have a conscience at least." I was so enraged when I heard her words that I yelled at her. I poured out all the resentment that was piled up in my heart. Then, would you believe what she said? "How dare you say that? Do I have to meet your in-laws when I don't want to? What if I met with them? The marriage was set, so would it be cancelled because we didn't meet beforehand? If I gave birth to you, raised you, and educated you, you as a daughter should do your responsibilities. Just because I didn't meet with your in-laws, is it right to criticize your old mother? That stupid postpartum care. I wonder why you didn't say anything. That's why I'm asking to live together, so I will cook for you, which I didn't before. I will. How can you not know what your own mom is trying, and you act as if I owe you something? If a parent becomes old and helpless, it's your duty to care your mom. Why are you trying to turn over your duty to your sister, who's getting married? You're so selfish, bitch." I was speechless. More shocking were my sister's words. Just as my mom finished yelling at me, my sister intervened. "Mom, she has always been like that, being so selfish." "What? Selfish? That's not for you to say. You received spending money from mom all these years and lived comfortably, didn't you? Even after you graduated from college, you had never earned a dime on your own. Our aunt told me that you hadn't earned any money and had no savings. So, Mom had to get a loan against the house to prepare for your wedding and the gifts. How can you take all from your mom, yet refuse to take care of her? That's not it. Have you ever even turned on the vacuum cleaner yourself all these years? How about the washer? When I lived in this house, I did all the laundry, cleaning the house, and even did all the dishes after you finished eating, because if I didn't do it, Mom would have to do it. Then, after I left home, you had Mom do it for you, right? How could you, when you didn't even work and do nothing at home? Your tuition is paid for by Mom. Your wedding is paid for by Mom. Why don't you let Mom live your life too? For someone who doesn't even take her own responsibility, how dare you call me selfish? Then she shouted at me that I had no manners to respect an older sister. Why? Are you embarrassed to hear the truth from your younger sister? If you don't want to hear it, act your age and live with Mom and take care of her. I didn't tell you to live like that. When I yelled back, my mom was ready to hit me and screamed at me. How dare you talk like that to your older sister? Is she a friend? You have no manners. Do you think I want to live with someone like you? I hate it too. You remind me of your grandma who hated to see you, so I don't want to live with you even for a second. When my mom revealed her true feelings about me, my sister became angry. Mom, if you don't live with her, who will take care of your illness? You're not asking me to do it, are you? I can't do it. I will die before I do it. I'm scared to see you be so forgetful these days. If your Alzheimer's disease gets worse, you will put your shit on the wall and so forth. How could I cope with such dirty stuff? You know I have a weak stomach, so don't say anything and just live with Nagyong. Do whatever you need to convince her, but just live with her. I can't live with you, never. Then, my mom poked at my sister's thigh. You're a fool. Why mention about my Alzheimer's condition? How can we be a team like this? I thought my mom's reason for asking us to live with her was actually to ask me for money for my sister's wedding. Out of blue, I wondered why she suddenly wanted to live with me. So, was that it? Now that you have the Alzheimer's, do you want to live with me because you can't make your favorite daughter suffer? So, let's use your second daughter, right? Mom, are you really my mother? How can you be like this to the end? How could you not change one bit? You too, are you grown up at all? Did your age all go into your asshole? How could you say such a thing to Mom who only cared for you all these years that you can't live with her because she's dirty? After sucking all the honey out of her, is Mom a stranger to you now that she is sick? Are you a human being? I don't know what blind jerk is marrying someone like you, but he would have to witness all this, so I feel sorry for him. Mom, you should wake up too. You still consider her your daughter and continue to spoil her with everything you got. You shouldn't spend your money on her wedding, but take that to use it to put yourself in a nursing home. I have no intention to be connected to this family since you never treated me as one. So, you too should take care of yourselves on your own. Mom, I will end with just one thing. You reap what you sow. Don't try to look elsewhere. Got it? I left home after that. In truth, I did not feel good about it. Even though I hated my mom, how could I be okay to hear that she's got Alzheimer's disease? However, I vowed that I would not live with her. At least, just as I tried hard to please her, I felt that Mom needed to try sincerely. She had devastated a 10-year-old daughter permanently, and yet to freely expect that daughter to take care of her was unfair. If she gave her love to someone, then she should expect it from the same one. I plan to give my love to my husband and his family, who love me unconditionally. I will never forget their kindness and always be grateful. I hope that you are loved by the person you love, and I hope you give love and live happily.